I should preface this video by saying that my respect for Don Bluth as an animator and as a filmmaker has only skyrocketed over the years. I never really saw many of his movies as a kid. However, as I got older and wanted to pursue animation, it led me to learn more about him and his works. And his earlier films, such as The Secret of NIMH and Land Before Time, are absolutely cinematic classics. Yeah, cinematic. And I even got ironic enjoyment out of his other movies, such as Thumbelina and the Pebble and the Penguin. However, I remember one of the last films of his that I watched was Anastasia, and what do I remember thinking about it? It was a fine movie, especially compared to his works of the early to mid-1990s. However, compared to the earlier works where it was far, a bit more traditional. You know, his earlier films never really did focus on a princess or, a love story. Well, this one did, and wasn't used to it. But, it was definitely better than his phase in the 90s. But overall, I thought it was a pretty meh film, so that's how I retained it in my memory. If that is the case, why am I here today with a video called Why Don Bluth's Anastasia Hits Different? Well, sometimes you just gotta give things a few years and take another look. Like I had to with this film. And we're going to start with that. So buckle in as I talk about why Don Bluth's Anastasia hits different. Seeing as we're talking about a Don Bluth movie, we should probably talk about Don Bluth himself. Yes, this is an animation history lesson. Shut up! Alright, so Don Bluth was born in El Paso, Texas on September 13th, 1937. Ironically enough, only a few months before Disney would release their first ever animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Why is this ironic? Because Don Bluth would grow to be an absolute Disney fanatic, going to the theaters to see every movie, reading all the comics, and his first animation job being an assistant to one of the 9 old men, John Lounsbury, during the production of Sleeping Beauty. However, not finding much interest or stimulation in the work, he sought elsewhere for different animation jobs. However, he would return to the studio after some time and would end up being a directing animator for The Rescuers and an animation director for Pete's Dragon. Those are 2 very different jobs, yes. However, eventually after some time, particularly on his 42nd birthday during the production of 1981's Fox and the Hound, Don Bluth said,
"Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, and fuck you, I'm out."
And from here, man would make his own animation studio and make several animated films during the 1980s that would kick Disney's ass. I shit you not. Great Mouse Detective, I love that movie. It got beat out by fucking American Tail, bitch. Oh, Oliver and Company? Nope. Fuck you, Robert Loggia. Fucking Land Before Time, bitch. Yes, he beat their asses. Until 1989. At this time, he got a little cocky and released All Dogs Go to Heaven the same weekend as The Little Mermaid. And from there, he kind of had a downward spiral in the 1990s, making stuff. So, yeah, it was a bit of a rough time. Until 1995, where after the box office bomb of Pebble and the Penguin, he had to bankrupt his studio in Ireland. It was bad. However, there was one person coming in clutch. 20th Century Fox was trying to open an animation studio at the time, which, funny enough, Bluth and his business partner Gary Goldman already signed on to, so they were ready. And their first plans was to adapt one of Fox's Golden Age musicals, something along the lines of The King and I, or My Fair Lady. However, Bluth and Goldman didn't really think they could improve on those films, so they didn't really know what else to do. Until CEO of the time, Bill Mechanic, was like, hey, try this 56 movie called Anastasia, whatever. And I'm just gonna read a quick title card and brief synopsis, so there we go. In 1917, the Romanov dynasty rulers of Imperial Russia were overthrown by revolution. Some of the nobility and their followers fled to safety, but the Tsar, his wife, and children were imprisoned and then shot in 1918. Shortly after, there were strange whispers that one of the family had escaped and was still alive. In the weeks, months, years that followed, the whispers grew louder and louder. And then a woman appeared. A woman who was said to be the youngest daughter of the last Tsar, Her Imperial Highness, the Grand Duchess Anastasia. Only she, if she is still alive, knows the truth behind the story you are about to see. And yeah, basically the movie is about these dudes in 1920s Paris who made this promise to some stockholders they borrowed a shit ton of money from to present the Grand Duchess or else they're gonna get arrested for fraud. So they take this mentally ill woman who claimed in a moment of clarity that she was the Grand Duchess and proceed to poke and prod at her and feed her everything to say to make people think she's Anastasia. And even go as far as to prove her to Anastasia's grandmother, the Dowager Empress, Marie Feodorovna. However, she falls in love with the dude and they elope together at the end. Ugh. I don't know if you could tell I didn't really like the movie. Regardless about how I feel about it though, Bluth and Goldman went, hell yeah, let's do this. We're also gonna add a little bit of Pygmalion for some flavor, and we're gonna make the coolest fucking movie ever. One problem though, the actual history behind everything about the Romanov execution and the Bolshevik Revolution is kinda not family appropriate. Though I do find this a tad ironic considering Bluth's previous films and his philosophy that you can show children anything as long as there's a happy ending. But hey, kids aren't ready for the Bolshevik Revolution, I suppose. Though I suppose this also can be heavily attributed to the fact that for a while, Bluth's films were coming from his studio. And, well, he could be a bit more risky, as opposed to people like Disney, whose attempts at darker subject matter were panned. And now he was under Fox's wing, and they probably had a similar mindset where they couldn't be as explicit about some more mature subjects as what did actually happen to the Romanovs and actual historical figures like Rasputin. Don't worry, we got a Boney M song for that. However, as was probably actually appropriate at the time, they did make sure to point out all the communism!
I'm listening, Comrade Flemenkoff.
Exit visa.
It's what I hate about this government. Everything's in red.
I feel like I'm back in history class watching Red Dawn. This is great. But yeah, this movie is far from a historical documentary. This is a very, very fictionalized historical take on a romantic comedy. It's cool, guys, don't worry. Okay, so the film opens up in 1917 with the 300th anniversary of the Romanov Empire being narrated by the Dowager Empress, aka your girl,
Dame Angela Lansbury.
Which, pause, actually, the 300th anniversary of the Romanov Empire would have been in 1913, despite what Angela Lansbury says here, as this is when 300 years ago, Anastasia, not this one, Romanova, married Ivan the Terrible, the first crowned Tsar of Russia. So, yeah. She begins to detail her highly personal relationship with her youngest granddaughter, none other than Anastasia.
Of our sweet Anastasia.
Nah, it's like with the Z, Anastasia. Okay, fine, jeez. This introduces us to one of the most prominent things people remember about this film, the music box and the lullaby. And yeah, it's gorgeous. Anyone want to propose to me with a replica? Just wondering, no pressure or anything. And yes, the 3D assets in this film are very dated, but consider, this movie came out in 1997, 2 years after Toy Story was the first fully CGI film ever produced, so we were a long time away from getting it spot on.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
However, not all is well in the palace, because none other than Ra Rasputin enters to crash the party, claiming that the Romanovs will die in fortnight.
And your family will die within a fortnight.
Wonder if you know how I'm playing Fortnite. If you see me, then you mean it, then you know you gotta die.
I'm sorry. That game has literally ruined the word Fortnite for me. And this movie proceeds to piss off even more history nerds by implying that Rasputin selling his soul and getting his evil green ghouls was what caused the Bolshevik Revolution. I shit you not! I know, family film can't tackle Bolshevik Revolution unless there's talking pigs. Oh hey, Kelsey Grammer's also in this film. Nice. Okay, let's promise not to point out any more historical inaccuracies. Promise? Promise. So as the palace is being sieged by the revolutionaries, a kitchen boy helps Anastasia and Marie escape, and as Marie gets onto the train to flee Russia, Anastasia, whom we can assume as of this moment is the last surviving family member Marie still has, falls from her grasp and is left unconscious in the snow as Marie cries out for her while the train only takes her further and further away. The last she'll ever see of her son's family, and presumably the last she'll ever see of the child nearest and dearest to her. Oh yeah, Raspian falls in the water, I guess, but that's not nearly as tragic when the only one grieving your ass is Hank Azaria. Trust me, I'll fucking get to him. But hey, let's forget about all that because we're gonna get this absolute banger in St. Petersburg. Hey, have you heard there's a rumor in St. Petersburg? Have you heard what they're saying on the street? Like, I know this is Bambi's mom's deaf to happy, happy springtime levels of tonal whiplash, but hey, this slaps. Anyways, we get introduced to heartthrob Dimitri and...
Uh-oh, direct hit, Cupid.
Anyways, they're basically like, dude, St. Petersburg sucks. Let's dip. But we don't have any money. Yeah, so we'll scam the Dowager Empress out of 10 million friggin' rubles. How are we gonna do that? By abducting this random redhead to look like her supposedly dead granddaughter, dude. Dimitri, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's genius. Throw in some Soviets breakdancing and yeah, best song. Except not really because there's so many bangers in this film. But we'll get to that when we get to that. For now we catch up with Anastasia, or as she's been named, Anya, who for the past 10 years since all that had happened had been raised at this crappy orphanage by this bitch. But it's okay, because she meets Puka, the long-eared Russian dog who you can buy at your local participating Build-A-Bear. And now we get the supposed let it go of the 1990s. I'm just gonna say this right here, right now. I was born in 2002, so I was not here for the supposed craze of this song, but I was there in the 6th grade when Frozen came out, and trust me, as a young girl, this shit was the craze. So I can only imagine what merchandise for this film, and let alone the popularity of this song did for girls who would have been my age then. Hell, this song was the one that got nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars, only to get swept by Celine Dion. Not to mention, Aaliyah covered this song, and it equally slaps. Also, just especially compared to Bluth's previous films, the movie got merch. Burger King toys, dolls, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, a bouncy castle at SeaWorld, even a fucking ice show? Trust me, I will go off about the ice show later. But right now, this song slaps and is a good contender for an I Want song, especially to me up there with something like Somewhere That's Green from Little Shop. Good job. And hey, we're in St. Petersburg. So Anya's trying to go to Paris and this dude is like, no exit visa, fuck off. And this old lady is like, listen, I know this one guy. And then we get back to these two assholes. And we get introduced to the cuntiest character of all time.
Grandma, it's me, Anastasia.
Brother.
God, I want to make him fucking whimper.
It's time to stop!
Meanwhile, Anya's trying to find this dude. Fucking rude ass bitch! But don't worry, babes. It gets even cuntier with the song. That's right, the song. The song everyone remembers this film for. And the song was the whole reason I had a release date for this video to begin with. Once Upon a December.
Oops!
But literally, what can be said about this song that hasn't already been said? Literally everyone and their mother has covered this song. A haunting reprise of the lullaby between Anastasia and Marie, now being remembered ever so faintly through the lenses of amnesia and a long 10 years of hardship and trauma. Along with the hallucinations of guests from that decade ago still waltzing on the floor, not knowing how quickly a lot of them would soon meet their end. And the song closing off with Anya reaching out to a father she once knew to have that father-daughter dance now that she has grown into a young woman and would have been celebrated and coronated, only for that to have never been. Glowing as dim as an ember, her mind trying to piece together a puzzle that was irreparably broken before it could have even ever been finished. A lonely girl trying to find out who she is in the real world, but is only running back to whatever semblance of good times or stability she might have once had, knowing deep down that it never was meant to be. Am I a pussy for saying that this scene made me tear up during a recent rewatch with my younger brother? Like, you can tell me that I'm putting way too much thought into a film, but that doesn't matter. I'm having fun. Shut up. Anyways, these two are like, oh shit, someone broke into our secret hangout. And Dimitri and Anya share their first gaze at one another. So they convince Anya, hey, we going to Paris, you can go to Paris. Can you impersonate a dead woman? And they give her the ticket to... Wait a second. What's that fourth ticket? Wait, no, why did Dimitri have 4 tickets? Who was that 4th ticket for? No, this has been haunting me since I noticed it. Who the fuck was that 4th ticket for? I should also mention, since it is gonna end up coming up, I know I mentioned that I didn't care for the 56 film, and I honestly the whole time felt irked by the fact that they just found this presumably mentally ill woman and were just sort of pushing and pulling her about. Like, I know it's simulated and they're actors, but it still makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Plus, I think most of us have some semblance of knowledge that during the time that movie was made, and for a lot of Hollywood's history, female actors weren't treated particularly well behind the scenes of most of your favorite movies, so... Look, I'm not trying to make any bold claims here as much as this is just me being wary. Plus, compared to her 1956 counterpart, Anya is a more active protagonist and has made her own way here out of her own ambitions and is agreeing to do this princess gig to achieve a goal she already had in mind for herself. I don't know. Maybe I'm more tolerable of grabbing women when it's animated, especially if it's by him. Plus, if I just turned 18 and on my first day in the real world I was approached by John Cusack and Kelsey Grammer telling me that I'm the lost princess, I would so be down. Plus, it's better than what actually happened in the world on my 18th birthday. But guys, this could be the start of something new. But before we get to all of that, we need to discuss the elephant in the room. The historically inaccurate elephant in the room, and that annoying fucking bat. Now don't get me wrong, Rasputin is a fine antagonist, especially for a family film that was restricted from using too many darker aspects of actual Russian history. Christopher Lloyd has always been one of those actors who, while they're renowned celebrities for their on-camera work, their voice performances and animation are still just as good. Kids who watch PBS Kids growing up know what I'm talking about right now. Which, while I'm discussing this, I should say, I feel like celebrity voice actors are a double-edged sword. One of the earliest and most prominent examples being Robin Williams voicing both Batty Koda and Ferngully the Last Rainforest in The Genie from Aladdin. This was a celebrity voice acting gig that did wonders for both respected films and their comedic aspects. Because of Williams' godly ability and improvisation, it of course made sense that voice acting would be prominent in his filmography. It also made sense that this would start a craze of people pursuing highly acclaimed comedians and stage actors to voice in their animated films. In fact, another example is right here with Kelsey Grammer in this film. Reminder that this was the 1990s and he made it huge with his role on Cheers, and that during this time, the Frasier spinoff was one of the biggest shows on TV. But even before Anastasia, he'd become a recurring guest star on The Simpsons as Sideshow Bob. So, yes, there are film and television actors who can voice act. However, that feels all that much more fleeting considering where we are today in terms of celebrity voice actors, where it seems they're more likely to be casted for their camera work rather than their voice work, and not always for the best. Pratt. I'm talking about Chris Pratt. What rhymes with Pratt? Bat. I'm about to rant about the bat. I'll say it. I did not care for Bartok. Yes, I know I was having a gay old time referencing Bartok the Magnificent during the Frasier 2023 series, but I do not like this bat. I have no ill will towards Hank Azaria. I adore him and his work on The Simpsons, but I don't like the bat. Like, yes, Rasputin needed someone to bounce off of in his scenes, but I feel like we could have done way better, guys. I'm fine with comedy to lighten the mood. What I'm not okay with is this absolute tonal whiplash with the villain where he'll be discussing ways to murder this woman, but the bat is talking about doing disco dances. Oh. And as if I didn't have enough reason to hate this albino beast of burden, guess who they designed this character to be voiced by? Take a wild guess. Or not, since I'm about to do a comedic skit about it. What's up, Don? You know, it's just... this movie's really dark. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. We need something to make it more appealing. Especially to kids. Oh yeah, kids. The villain needs a sidekick. Oh! Yeah, okay, we could definitely use that. Rasputin needs someone to bounce off of. Yeah, he needs a sidekick. A bat. A bat? Yeah, sure, we could do that. Who'd you have in mind? Really funny guy. I feel like the kids will love him. Alright. Woody Allen. Ooh, good thinking. Yeah, he's funny. Kids will love him. Yeah, he seems like a kid's man. Yeah. Oh yeah, well, let me ring him up.
3 weeks later.
He did what? You said he seemed like a kid's man! Never in a million years did I mean it by that, Gary! What the fuck? So, yeah, I don't care for Bartok, and he is by far the weakest aspect of this movie. So, as far as I can go on without mentioning him, I won't. So for now, what can I say except this song also slaps? with outstanding vocals by voice acting veteran Jim Cummings and the sinister yet grandiose instrumentals. However, my grievance, besides this albino abortion, is the visuals. When we're getting green ghouls and demonic creatures, as we see much later in this film, would it have killed them to use more menacing creatures as imagery during this insanely good number besides these ugly ass fucking bugs? This isn't Thumbelina! This is the undead corpse of a mystic singing about how he's going to murder this woman to fulfill his fate and escape eternal limbo. I'm sorry that I want to be menaced by this dude's minions. Although, I will say, another cool thing about this song that I noticed, these bangs.
My curse made each of them pay, but one little girl got away. As the pieces fall into place, I'll see her crawl into place.
I've read speculation that they're meant to represent the gunshots that took out the Romanovs, and whether or not this is true, that's still pretty metal. Okay, now we're on the train, and I think now is a good time, if any, to discuss the romance. I'm just gonna say it, this is peak animated romance. Now don't get me wrong, I grew up with the Disney romances, I know them well, but Anya and Dimitri hits different. Something about snarky romances just gets me, ever since I was a kid. Hell, one of my childhood favorite movies was Chicken Run, which isn't really a film known for the romance of it, but guess what? It is to me. I like when romantic interests butt heads and have to adjust to each other. Cancel me all you want. My favorite trope is enemies to lovers. Burn me at the stake if you have to. I should start by discussing the look. And I'm not talking about no smolder Dimitri gives Anya. More like gawking stare at this absolute goddess while she looks at him like he's nuts, shrugging as if to tell him to go on with whatever gobbledygook is about to come out of his stupid mouth. I adore it. The first time with this stare, he's instantly trying to play it off like, dude, we found the fake granddaughter, and trying to rizz her up and failing miserably. But you know damn well at that ballet that he couldn't play it off. We knew. We just knew, babes. And hell, even in this train scene, their exchanges just feel so natural and snarky, with Dimitri remarking that he's glad to be out of St. Petersburg, while Anya, who has also clearly dealt with shit here in St. Petersburg, is pressing Dimitri on why he doesn't miss it since it was his home. Something that Anya, as far as she knows, has never truly had herself. This is a conversation! This could also be heavily lended to the fact that when they were recording the dialogue for this film, they had everyone record their lines separately. However, this sort of stilted the chemistry between these two, so they had it so Meg Ryan and John Cusack recorded in booths across from one another, hence the best romance ever. This could also just be because of my frustration with the 56 film, but Dimitri learning to stop being such a vaguely sexist douchebag is really satisfying to me. Like, at the beginning, him telling her to adjust herself on the train despite the fact that they haven't even started training, or remarking how he hates sass in a woman. All the while, Anya is positively girl-bossing it up, and Vlad is just there to encourage her to knock Dimitri down a peg, cause we know damn well he needs it. Plus, we can assume Anya's scrappiness and sass definitely came from having to stand up for herself in that orphanage, and makes sense for her character instead of the film trying to make her seem girl boss for the sake of girl boss. Like I know some modern film audiences would try to claim. Like, Dimitri will be doing some weird, vaguely creepy or annoying stuff that would cause her to lash at him. Like, I'd probably be weirded out too if I was circled by a man who was just yelling, "Hey, what are you doing here?" at me. And I would especially be fucking annoyed if I was trying to walk somewhere and some dickhead had his legs out blocking my way with no plans to move his legs despite me obviously trying to walk by. So yeah. Oh, and also that whole lying and manipulation thing in order to get 10 million rubles by tricking an elderly woman. You know, things. But usually helping someone survive an assassination attempt via train crash makes the heart grow fonder, I suppose. And from here on out, Anya does become nicer to Dimitri when he stops being such a prick. And you know, I think we can kind of thank someone for that. You know, a guy. Voiced by Kelsey Grammer. Kinda dreamy. Okay, if I don't talk about Vlad, I'm gonna fucking explode. I'm pretty sure I am the only person on the planet who has a crush on this man. If not, where the hell are y'all at? You're making me look stupid! I feel like the dad friend among a sea of girls whose first love was Dimitri, which is fitting considering the relationship between said characters. I don't know how or why this happened. It could very well be the voice kink as... Look, it's the man who voiced Sideshow Bob doing a vaguely Slavic accent. Could you blame me? Also, it's probably just something wrong with me, but big and kind of paternal men.
It's time to stop!
Where was I? Oh yeah, this man's peak. Get yourself someone who talks about you the way this man talks about Sophie.
Who's Sophie?
Who is Sophie? She's a tender little morsel, a cup of hot chocolate after a long walk in the snow.
Glad ixnay on the officer.
She's a decadent pastry filled with whipped cream and laughter.
Is this a person or a cream puff?
Okay, I have a whole list on this, man. I'm just gonna get through it. First, how did these two meet? I'm sure it could be correlated to the fact that Dmitri was a kitchen boy while Vlad was part of the imperial court. Like, maybe a younger Vlad saw this kid kind of causing mayhem and was like, I like this kid's spark. Or maybe it was after the fall of the Romanovs where Dmitri was probably homeless after, you know, the entire palace was sieged and Vlad took in this poor homeless kid. Like, we got a prequel. Why couldn't it be about these two and how they ended up getting into the whole Anastasia fraud business? But no, it has to be about the bad. Sorry, promised I wouldn't mention him. Like, these two clearly know each other really well, so I wish we could have learned more about them. Maybe someday I'll ask Don Bluth about it at a convention, but I would also look like a total freak whose hyperfixation is these two characters from this one 1990s movie. Second, remember how I got all emotional when talking about Anya's fleeting memories of her father during the finale of Once Upon a December? Well, maybe the real treasure was the father figures we made along the way. Like, despite the whole scam thing, this man has literally been such a doll. Whether it's casually rooting for her against Dimitri's nonsense, like giving her platforms to show Dmitri, hey, this woman is capable. Stop being such an ass. Also, I know I was gushing about him going off about Sophie just minutes ago, but actually consider. I like to imagine that this is his way to at least tip Anya off about Dimitri's whole scheme. Don't get me wrong, still trying to help Dmitri get those rubles, but he's at least trying to tip her in on what it's actually gonna have to be like proving herself to the Empress and thus starting their princess training. Not to mention that when Anya is understandably concerned about this, he instantly pep talks her up, dude. Like, this scene is everything to me.
Tell me, child, what do you see?
I see a skinny little nobody with no past and no future.
I see an engaging and fiery young woman who on a number of occasions has shown a regal command equal to any royal in the world. And I have known my share of royalty. There is nothing left for you back there, my dear. Everything is in Paris.
Oh my god, like, this is really good advice! Yes, I know other movies had this you can't change the past moral as well, but I'm sorry that it hits different here. Yes, they're trying to scam an emotionally vulnerable older woman, but also consider his advice is applicable here. Yes, the whole point of Journey to the Past is to find her family, but also everything else she has ahead of her with her weird guy friends and going to Paris. Dude, sometimes you just need someone to tell you to keep moving ahead. And, well, Vlad's that guy for this movie. So, I adore him. And I would let him do horrible things to me. If I can learn to do it, you can learn to do it. Up it, do it. Yeah, this song is also good, and you can see the Pygmalion influence in it. People say that this film is weak because they don't show much of the training. I don't know. I don't care. It's a good song that also apparently references actual members of the Romanov family. And it also gave me this voice clip.
And the horse, he was white.
I may use this for evil intentions. So yeah, fun song. Very good. Yeah. And then we get the romance. But for real this time. So they're on the boat from Germany to Paris at this point, and at this point, it's just putting the finishing touches on Anya to make sure she's ready to meet Sophie. And at this point, you can see that Dmitri and Anya have definitely mellowed out with one another, especially compared to earlier. And this is when our hit Dilfman decides that they are ready. Ready to dance! Something I also really like about this scene that I could also personally attribute to Vlad as a character is that he waits till Anya and Dmitri aren't trying to kill one another before letting them dance together. Like, during this film, he's probably had to wait for Dmitri to stop being a little prick, and only then does he allow Anya to show vulnerability around him when he tells her to let Dmitri lead the waltz, and it's like, yes, this is development, this is romance, and then when he's singing it is like, so good, and it actually made me cry because it's good. Also, remember how I mentioned the look between these two earlier? Well, that also plays a good part of their conversation during this scene where Dmitri, despite playing himself as such a womanizer, is still just as stunned by Anya when he knows he's B and finally sees her and respects her after all this time. It is so good! And trust me, we're gonna need more support of Dmitri for this scene. Now, remember how I mentioned how neutered a lot of the real aspects of history were for this film because of the fact it's a rated G 1990s family film? Well, personally, I like to believe that it's made up somewhat with the inclusion of this scene I'm about to talk about. Like, Rasputin in this film is hit or miss.
Guess they never miss, huh?
Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
In terms of being a legitimate threat. Don't get me wrong, like with his absolute moments of villainy, like where he's about to drown a little girl during In the Dark of the Night, and when he's so close to finally snuffing out that little shit, he still has his moments of comedic character animation and Christopher Lloyd noises to reassure audiences that we're allowed to laugh. Also because of the tonal dissonance via Hank Azaria back, but I digress. However, personally, I think this scene does really implement the threat of Rasputin as an antagonist despite the more comedic shortcomings. Like, in this scene, this man makes Anya have some weird dreams. Doesn't sound that evil. But what does he make her dream of? Her dead family telling her to jump to her demise to join them in death. Holy shit! Like, hi! How did I never realize how fucked up this scene is upon first viewing it? This is amazingly terrifying and sinister. Really good! Really friggin' good! But Dimitri having to save her from jumping to her death while it's lining up with the actually threatening demonic apparitions appearing in her dream? Like, damn, this is cinema. Where were those frightening visuals for In the Dark of the Night instead of these whore bugs? Whores! To be fair, maybe they were saving them for this scene, which is fine. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, the scene right before this one where Vlad and Anya are talking has this really cool James Baxter looking rotating animation that I thought looked really cool. Oh, and something that I didn't actually put much thought into until I noticed this one Tumblr post pointing it out, but the fact Vlad points out Dimitri being able to sleep through anything, wonder if that's from any sustained head injuries as a child, and yet he's the one who wakes up in time to save Anya from jumping. That's better than drugs. Anyways, yay, we're in France! And this is where we meet-
By the way, I'm bisexual.
Listen, if you put Bernadette Peters in anything ever, I'm gonna adore her. Okay? Okay. But also, we get Angela Lansbury being amazing. Like, I don't know if this is just me, but I adore seeing Broadway actors in animated films. Like, I know I mentioned earlier the epidemic of celebrity voice actors and how not all of them are great, but several animated films I've seen have featured the voice talents of various Broadway or off-Broadway performers, and they've always delivered amazing voice performances, so yeah, not much else to say on it. Okay, but in terms of the film, I know it's obvious that we don't see Marie for most of it after the beginning prologue, considering she's not present in Anya's story for the most part for her self-discovery and journey to find her past. But despite that, I feel it also very much benefits how we see Marie after having not seen her for most of this movie. Like, first scene of her, she's having a gay old time with her family and her love for Anya and her promising that she and her would be together in Paris. But after everything we saw in that intro, we could easily assume that her life would have been flipped upside down. Like, yeah, she has her fancy house in Paris, but also her family is dead. Her children and her grandchildren are dead. I don't know if you know the phrase, but no one should be outliving their children and grandchildren. Not only this, as if this wasn't already salt in the wound, she's had to deal with 10 years of people pretending to be her presumably dead grandchild for a quick buck. Yeah, I'd be aged and kinda bitter too. Don't get me wrong, she still retains that regality as a Dowager Empress, but compared to her sweet maternal undertone upon narrating the ball and her interaction with Anastasia, you can tell that she's been through it. Just tired of being played and conned, unable to trust anyone outside of her close remaining family being Sophie. So our trio make it there and- Move, bitch! Anyways, Vlad has Riz, Sophie's hot, I'm bisexual, I want them both to fuck me! And here's where shit hits the fan. In the 56 film, a point of contention between the Anastasia chick and the love interest was the fact that there was this prince dude who was into her and made the love interest jealous, but nah, Bluth said none of that shit. How about instead we have the love interest lies catch up with him, which we'll get to that. But also, his own sense of self is his greatest obstacle. You know, like cool person writing. During the scene where Sophie is testing Anya about her past, she asks one final question. Something that neither Dimitri nor Vlad would have known to prepare Anya for. How did she survive the siege on the palace? Like, you can see both of these dudes and know what they're both thinking. Oh shit, we did not think of this part. However, while you can hear the faintest instrumental reprise of Journey to the Past, Anya faintly recounts the foggy memory of a boy. A servant boy working in the palace who opened a secret door, guiding both her and her grandmother to safety before they could be captured. However, because of how far she's come in terms of remembering it all, and this not having been something she'd rehearsed, she brushes it off as a misremembrance. All the while, Dimitri makes the discovery that she is indeed the real Anastasia. Which, while we're here, let's talk about Dimitri. Okay, I know a lot of you girls from the 1990s probably wanted this man like no other. I get it, I watch your Disney MEPs, I know, but I think I should get to overanalyze him too. As we saw at the beginning, Dimitri was a kitchen boy who worked at the palace. You know, just a little guy. Young, scrappy, and hungry, not gonna throw away his shot. And we all know how that ended, helping Anastasia and her grandmother escape only to get bashed in the head with the butt of a gun, left with nothing but the music box. Next time we see him is 10 years later with him in St. Petersburg hanging out with Vlad, which, again, I wonder how they found one another because it seems like a sweet story judging by how buddy-buddy they are with each other. I can only sort of speculate for this part, so forgive me if it sounds like I'm reaching. I just really like Dimitri as a character, and shit, I kind of wish I looked like that. Like, I'm obviously very feminine, but if I were a handsome little guy in the 90s, I want to look like that. Anyways, I don't know about you, but having been potentially raised in servitude to a royal family only to be there while they were being taken and executed sounds messed up. And I do find it odd how he's known around the city for being able to forge these travel papers for people.
See Dimitri, he can help.
Just think, Vlad, no more forging papers, no more stolen goods. Never mind. Now, you said something about travel papers.
But also, he doesn't leave despite his seeming indifference during his conversation with Anya.
You think you're gonna miss it?
Miss what? You're talking?
No. Russia.
Nope.
But it was your home.
It was a place I once lived. End of story.
And even after he's completed the thing that he set out to do, he plans to return to St. Petersburg.
Well, if you're ever in St. Petersburg again, look me up.
Strange considering everything he said on that train. Not to mention wanting to partake in a scam that revolved around people he himself particularly had some form of personal experience with. Sure, you can just say maybe he saw the opportunity and took it, and his personal experience only elevated his ability to pull off this scam, which that's fair. But this, along with everything I just mentioned, and look, I don't know what it would have been like working as a kitchen boy for the Romanovs and whether or not that lifestyle, even before the siege, caused any childhood trauma, but regardless, that siege still must have been a horribly traumatic event for any kid to go through. But yet, he keeps going back. He can forge papers and make his way out. He does get out of Russia only to choose to return, even if for a brief moment before wanting to reconsole with Anya. And he did choose to partake on the chance to forge Anastasia, a girl he knew, even if it was just for a quick buck. So considering all of that, and what I mentioned about Anya's journey to the past, with her not knowing where else to go but backwards, trying to find her family in Paris, could it be that she and Dimitri are just two sides of the same coin? Both of them having had their semblance of stability and home stripped away at such a young age that even both in their adulthoods they're trying to flock back to it for stability they never got to have again after that significant trauma? Like, my god, speculation or not, that's a pretty deep yet relatable thing to have both your main protagonists go through in your family-rated 1990s movie. But hey, let's forget all of that because Paris holds the key to your heart. Okay, this song isn't as much as a tone shift as the prologue and A Rumor in St. Petersburg, but it's there. Like, everyone else is happy that they've gotten Anya to Paris and that she can finally meet the Dowager Empress, but Dimitri, the smug little con man that's been having a jolly old time this film, has really taken a turn and becomes a lot more reserved during their escapades in Paris. Like, he's still having fun and all, but the song does slow down a bit as Dimitri realizes that, hey, he's done his task. He got this scam done, but what's there now? What else can he do? He can just go back to St. Petersburg, but then what? Go back to forging papers, except he's kinda rich? Not only that, but this person who he just opened his heart to about everything on this journey, she's gonna be out of his life, right? Just fleeting like any other good thing he's had. Damn, that's rough, buddy. Also, funny thing that I wanted to note here that no one else really gets when I watch this movie with them. This song is like the embodiment of that mashup of CPR, Misery, Reese's Puffs. Like, Vlad and Sophie are undoubtedly fucking horny. Like, I'm sorry if I'm being crass, but look, wait, what was she doing with that Frenchman? Dimitri seems like the type of guy where if he were here today, he'd listen to Maroon 5, and Anya, she's having a gay old time. So they head to the actual real-life Palais Garnier, where, shit, Dimitri, better hope your girl don't get swept up by the Phantom. Although Vlad's fit kind of serving that Phantom swag, if I'm being honest with y'all. Dimitri lets Vlad know that, yeah, Anya's legit, and he's obviously like, dude, you gotta tell her. And he's like, nah, dude, princesses don't marry kitchen boys. Like, yeah, it sounds dumb, but please consider. More speculation, but this man has had little to nothing in his life before this. Kitchen boy as a kid to some crook who survived from lying or leeching off of people, so I don't know, the DILF probably had to remind him to eat or drink, let's be real here. So yeah, meeting someone who came from the similar or even worse conditions from you and seeing them achieve a lifetime goal of theirs can easily dishearten you or even deter you from wanting to pursue them romantically or hell, even just as friends. Like, for example, hi, I'm a 21-year-old who currently isn't enrolled in college or a job that they'd like to have for the rest of their lives, while other people my age are almost done with at least a bachelor's degree, or have gotten an associate's or a certification in some type of skill. I'm not complaining, it's just the fact that I'm using for the comparison. So imagine being on dating apps or really any other social app where you meet people in that age range who sort of have these accomplishments viewable on their account and you talk to some of them. Of course, at some point, the topic of education or career is going to come up, so if you're anything like me, you may feel you fall short as a romantic interest because you're not as advanced in life as them and therefore can't deliver. Yeah, this is a real feeling, and it's very applicable to Dimitri here. Even including everything I just said, friendly reminder to those who may have forgotten, everything that led to this was all based on a fraudulent scheme. One that paid off, luckily, but even if it hadn't, Dimitri approached and befriended Anya for means that were to benefit his pockets. Sure, things have very obviously changed, but that's still scummy, and yeah, he should be worried about that. But not now, not at this moment, because as a rendition of Journey to the Past's instrumental plays, Anya gives Dimitri that look. His gawking being met with a questioning shrug and glance from Anya, telling him to get on with whatever he's about to say or do. So they sit at the ballet in the boxes, waiting and waiting for what they'd come so far to do. Reunite the Grand Duchess Anastasia. One of the best moments even occurring when Dimitri notices Anya's fidgeting only worsening before taking her hand, reassuring that everything's gonna be okay. It should be just fine, right? She is Anastasia. After some more reassurance, and just before Dimitri could go inside to greet the Dowager Empress, the two share some words, both clearly expecting something, but neither of them quite delivering. But regardless, they didn't come all this way for nothing, so they carry on. As your homegirl Sophie is letting Dimitri in, ready to introduce Anya, the Dowager Empress shuts that shit down. We'd heard her earlier. She's done. She's done having to play I Spy and having to take down another imposter. 10 years of it. She's done. Anyone else can just take their sorry ass home for all she cares, even if they did come from Timbuktu. But Dimitri isn't that easy. He's a con man. He'll barter and beckon till he gets what he wants. It's just his nature. But what good can this tactic get you with a woman who has everything, but nobody left? She knows every sniveling skis who can train these girls just to get a hold of some reward money. And this guy's just another bullet point on that list. Why should she believe Dimitri? And why should Anya believe Dimitri? He's a crook. He probably knows his women well, gullible enough to let him primp and polish them. He said it himself. He hated a woman with a mind of her own. Then why would he have ever fallen for Anya? As Dimitri is escorted out, Anya has heard everything. She's obviously distraught. She'd put her dream, this one single goal of hers, all into this guy's hands. And where did it get her? Still stuck in the past, still an orphan, her family's still 6 feet under, that woman just narrowly avoided getting scammed, and this guy who'd brought her across time zones, far away from what semblance of home she did have, had lied to her for the sake of his own pockets. Why should she believe his confession now? Some fairy tale about the two having known each other in childhood? The same guy who told her, an orphan, the fairy tale of a lost princess trying to find her family? His pleas for a chance to explain and a chance to reconnect with her knowing what he knows now, they're simply nothing more than just barters and bargains from him. Just a deceitful con artist, still trying to cheat her in, the same way he'd roped her into this travesty. He roped everyone along for his con, for nobody's own good but his own. Having played her emotions like a fiddle, forever thinking that there was a place for her in this life, outside of a factory line. Making her care for him, the same he probably would have done to any of those imposters he was casting. What else can he say? Nothing that would ever make this okay. But you know Dimitri, never taking no for an answer, so he finally receives his. Now, I know damn well what all of you animation critics are gonna say about some contrived liar-revealed plot and how this movie plays into that trope. Well, as politely as I can say it, shut the fuck up. This man literally had this coming, and unlike other misuses of the trope, it's not like they had a plan that was guaranteed to work that they threw out the window because the guy who came up with it lied. From the beginning, Anya made it clear to Dimitri that she didn't want to have to forge anything with the Dowager Empress, and that she just wanted to know if she was indeed the family she never had. Not knowing there was a huge amount of money that would have been given in her name. If anything, I think that's why this film doesn't spend a larger part of the training like I've heard some people point out. They're just teaching her family lineages and Russian etiquette. It's not like she's being fed lines about how they'd have picnics by the shore in the spring like this other imposter. To Anya, it was simply just to check. Just to check if she truly did have anything good that she could cling back to after having been told for most of her life that she had no choice but to be grateful if she could even get a job. And as far as she knows now, she doesn't. This guy clearly just wanted money and would have been fine with tricking an emotionally vulnerable older woman if need be. And with that being against Anya's morals, why should she still play along? She's completely right here. As much as we've seen Dimitri open his mind to begin to understand and appreciate Anya, he still has to deal with the fact that, hey, he fell for his own con.
At least I'm not dating mine!
So, what else can Dimitri do than just walk away? Except that he fucked up and... No, the man hijacks a vehicle containing a government official. And he insists that she talk to Anya, only managing to convince her once he reveals the music box. And we get what is, to me, the most powerful scene in this film. As Anya is packing, ready to get as far away from everything that she had to deal with here, there's a knock at the door. Instantly, she tells Dimitri to fuck off, but the door opens and in enters Marie, ready to finally see what could just easily be another fraud. She asks Anya to identify herself, only for Anya, faltering from her defenses, to just meekly tell her that she was hoping that Marie could help her with that. Just to tell her then and there whether or not she is her granddaughter. No trying to fool or please her by reciting a list of facts, just a look and a minute of her time. That's all she wants, promising Marie that she has no intent on tricking or swindling her, just to know if she has a family, particularly her family. But Marie, knowing that she has so little time left to waste on another false hope, politely dismisses Anya as just merely a very talented actress. But as she's about to leave, Anya stops. There's a scent looming in the air. Peppermint. An oil. A bottle of it strewn across the floor, soaking the carpet, forever leaving its smell. Much like what's in the air now. This catches Marie's attention. Not some long-winded spiel about picnics by the shore or a palace by the sea. Just that memory. As Marie invites Anya to sit by her, asking to observe the necklace Anya's wearing, a secret promise between a granddaughter and her grandchild before disaster struck. As Marie hands her the music box Dimitri had given to her, Anya slowly recalls the memory as she winds the box, the lyrics slowly returning to her, the same way Marie's pride and joy has returned to her, realizing that her, Anastasia, has indeed returned to her. Despite everything these two having been through without each other, nothing matters now, except here and now. A woman who wanted nothing more than to move far, far away from her past, and a young woman who wanted nothing more than to return to that past, can finally enjoy each other's presence here, in the present. All the while, Dimitri stands outside, bidding farewell as he leaves, content with the fact that if he'd ever did one good deed in his life, it was this, and that it was enough. One thing I really like is that when you compare the beginning rendition of the lullaby with this one, when they sing that last lyric, the person who sings the higher octave changes. At the beginning it's young Anastasia, but here now it's Marie. Now, I am not at all proficient in music theory, but this has to mean something. I can't find anything specifically about this, but In my eyes, I believe the one singing the higher octave is meant to symbolize the vulnerability of one who just achieved closure. At the beginning, it was young Anastasia, reassured by the fact that she would see her grandmother once again in Paris after she left. And here now, it's Marie, comforted by the fact that her final years are that less alone now that she has the person she's longed for so many years. And before we continue, I do need to mention this. This scene, even with its power on its own, is still all that much more personal to me, and I think it's only fair that I should discuss that. Earlier this year, my mother and I were returning from a trip to Boston, and during that car trip, realization had dawned on us that it had been 5 years since my grandmother died. 5 years since our lives had basically changed forever, losing the matriarch of our family and things having collapsed in the lives of everyone who was close to her. 5 years since that heartache. However, it didn't really hit me at that moment. I'd sort of just been numbed. I missed her, but I still kept going, even without her guidance, right? Then that night, however, I was hanging with a close friend of mine, and we'd put on this movie just to unwind. And then this scene came on. This scene between two women, very much akin to my grandmother and I. Somewhat. I was still a teen when my grandmother passed, but at this point in time, I was almost 21, with my birthday being less than a week away. I was an adult. I am an adult. But I'm still just as lost as I was then, still grappling with how losing one person could deter everything I had going on for me. This scene, even if I had seen and cried to it before, in that moment, felt like a conversation. One that I was having with someone who should have been so familiar to me, yet wasn't. Between me and a face that I thought had just been faded out to null an open wound. I knew my grandmother, I knew who she was, and even if I had learned more about her after she passed, she still remained the same in my head, if not just dimming ever so slightly. But I had changed. I was no longer this bright-eyed kid with these huge dreams of going west. I didn't know who I was. How was I supposed to know? I'd still been processing this loss so much that I didn't even develop an identity outside of what little I would share with people. So, what identity can I call myself if I don't even know it? And the last time I had one that I knew of, it was with her. Though, if I can't even identify myself now, how would she be able to do that for me? She's gone. She's lived her life and I've yet to even begin mine. While I can recollect and slowly piece together these beautiful memories her and I shared, and can even relish in the fact that I got to have her in my life at all, being its own gift, there's no use dwelling. I can say that I've bandaged up this wound and yet still let it bleed out, but that's wasteful. Not letting it heal. Peeling away at a scab just to nurse it again and again. So, what do? You move on. You keep going. You don't need to keep coming back to this place. You move on. So, Dmitri isn't done here in the narrative. The Dowager Empress still expects to repay him for achieving a feat as impenetrable as returning the Grand Duchess. 10 million rubles with her gratitude. But he doesn't want it. There's nothing she can offer him that he wants. While this is a sign of growth on his part, remember when I said earlier, he's still just planning to go back to St. Petersburg? As he says his goodbyes to Anya, bowing and addressing her as such with her newfound position, something you know damn well his stubborn ass would not have done before, and despite the last time we saw them interact, you can tell there has at least been some forgiveness. Not completely, but there is at least cordiality between the two before Dmitri goes and "It's my daddy!" Just like before regarding Anya's legitimacy, Vlad tells Dmitri that there is room for him in this life and that he doesn't have to keep going back. Even if he can never completely make this up to Anya, he doesn't have to return to the place where he's nothing more than a crook and having to look back at where he's suffered. He doesn't have to stay in the past. But according to him, he doesn't belong here. He doesn't think he deserves this life. A life away from everything he's done and everyone he's ever cheated and scammed. Even here, even if he did attempt to cheat and scam these people, they're forgiving him. And yet, he doesn't believe he deserves even that. But he's not the only one still stuck in the past. As happy as Marie is to have Anastasia back in her life, she knows that Anya still has so much more to live.
You were born into this world of glittering jewels and fine titles, but I wonder if this is what you really want.
Of course it is. I found what I was looking for. I found out who I am. I found you.
Yes, you did find me. And you'll always have me. But is it enough?
How many times can you want to relive the past with people you knew? Especially from the way she was looking at that room, patrolling for a certain someone who's in a similar position as her. Though Anya is still rightfully mad, Marie does hint her in that Dimitri didn't just leave with the money, and reassures her that no matter what Anya chooses, she now and forever has her grandmother to come back to. But before Anya can make that choice, there's some undead zombie man who wants to kill her, so we should probably take care of that first. Okay, from how little I've talked about his relevance in the narrative, you know that I don't really pay much mind to Rasputin. He's still a fun character, and he's still a fun addition as an antagonistic force, but he does pale so much in comparison compared to the emotional journey that the film is supposed to focus on. But hey, it's giving us a final climax, and it gives Dimitri a way to return to the story to help Anya completing his arc. Kinda, somewhat. Now, I know you theater kids in the comments are going to tell me how the musical adaptation improves this or whatever by not including the fantasy elements and instead using this guy named Gleb. Yeah, Gleb. But consider, I've already spent like at least 20 pages on a 94-minute animated film, so consider, I'll watch it another time. Okay, promise, good. Okay, as much shit-talking as I'm doing on Rasputin, once again, he's well animated and voice acted, as well as any music when he's on screen absolutely slapping with the use of a choir, so yeah, he's fine. I enjoy him, especially in comparison to his sidekick, and the parallel is important for a lot of developments in Anya and Dimitri's relationship. But a part of me wishes he was in a different film where the emotional core story is not this powerful to outshine him. I don't know, I think that's the best way I can summarize what little I feel about this character. Das Vidanya, bitch. Speaking of another trope that a bunch of quote-unquote animation critics say but I'm pretty indifferent towards is the whole fake death before kiss. It's fine. No, really, it's fine! Though the way they close Anya's arc off with her about to kiss Dimitri only for the dog that spurred her journey to the past to try and give her back her crown. Dimitri telling Anya that they're waiting for her, and the look she gives him before segueing into the reveal that the two had eloped. What a happy ending.
No, it's a perfect beginning.
And this fucking bat ruins everything. Why does he have a love interest? What? Because he had some arc about not wanting to work for Rasputin anymore? That he's worthy of love? All because Hank Azaria does the funny voice? This bat didn't do shit. This is a useless little bitch made for the sake of trying to make an impressively mature emotional journey more palatable for a younger audience, only to drive me, this one specific person watching this movie over 25 years later, insane. Fuck Bartok. Fuck his prequel. Fuck the fact that we could have just had a nice closing shot of the camera panning to the moon in the Paris sky with a simple "the end." But no, we get this stupid fucking bullshit. The genie did that funny thing where he pulled down the film. Why couldn't Bartok do it? Because he sucks? I'm sorry.
Now, is Anastasia a perfect movie? Not in the slightest. Everything I mentioned with Rasputin and albino abortion still falls incredibly flat compared to the main narrative, which I'm not saying I condemn Bluth for wanting to implement these characters. Obviously, again, man was working with a bigger company this time around that gave him a lot of pushback on the dark history aspects, especially considering that it was a prominent obstacle when they were trying to get their top choice for Anya, Meg Ryan. Or even if it wasn't executive interference and Bluth himself only wanted to make a mature narrative more suitable for a younger audience, that's fine. He's still a very talented filmmaker and I have no ill will against him. Plus, I've heard that this has improved a lot in the musical. Again, I haven't seen it. Not to mention, I noticed with a lot of the marketing for this film that Bartok was used as the non-girly toy option to promote the film with its brand deals with companies such as Burger King and their kids' meal toys, so yay, marketing sex-designated toys, fuck! But, is this one of Bluth's best films? Yes. Don't get me wrong. I personally view his first 3 theatrical movies as his top 2 to 3, as that is what got him on the map as a filmmaker, and proved his more inventive and mature ways of storytelling for a family audience. I don't know. Anastasia would be a number 3 or number 4 on that list. I don't know. I don't rank movies. I'm not sure fellas. Ask him to do a Don Bluth video. I wonder if he'd like it. Now, before I give my closing sentiments, I do want to mention one thing. I mentioned it earlier, and it made me so happy that this happened, but also really sad that I'm never going to get to see this, but like I mentioned, this film, unlike some of Bluth's previous projects, got a lot of marketing. Due to the fact that Fox, before being bought by Disney several years later, was their own little powerhouse of entertainment outside of animation and were able to do a lot of polls to help promote this film. This included an ice show. Now, to those of you who don't know, I've been going to Disney on Ice all my life. Like, since I was a kid, and even now as an adult sometimes during the winter. I'm an adult. I like ice skating. So, when I was researching this movie and found out that this existed, I was fucking ecstatic. Like, I adore this film, weak villain and all. But being able to see this shit performed live on ice and not have to spend $1 million on Broadway, that would have been so cool. It probably could have introduced me to Bluth films a lot earlier. Who knew? Hell, I texted my friend who was actually also a Disney on Ice kid who grew up in the 90s, telling her how I didn't know this existed and how I wish I could have seen it. Do you know what she did? The motherfucking goat? She not only still had the program claiming she got to see it as a kid, she sent me pictures. She sent me pictures of this. And I'm going to show them on screen, but oh my god. Thank you so much. Fuck, I wish I could have experienced this. This is dumb, but if any of you can find me Anastasia on Ice footage outside of the clips and promos you can find on YouTube, I don't know, I'll subscribe to your channel, I guess. Also, this is really dumb, but when my friend sent me those photos, it caused us to go on this really insightful conversation about the degradation of Disney on Ice over the years and how it also ties into the fact that the corporatization of children's media and its increasing rarity and quality compared to what, you or I probably grew up with is actually becoming a problem, especially considering Generation Alpha's lack of socialization due to a mixture of the pandemic as well as being raised on technology and how it's inflicting actual education. But, Anastasia! So this movie, yes, it's made for a family audience and made to appeal to young children, but so are so many other animated films. You can hear these animation critics say time and time again that animation is cinema, but only ever talk about animated movies that happen to get popular, discussed a lot on Twitter, but never about any niche films that they may have liked as a kid that they want to, talk about upon rewatch as an adult. I'm not saying Bluth is Scorsese or anything, but he's a craftsman, as any animator should be. His movies are valuable. A film's value shouldn't be based around whether or not it has these big, grandiose angles or compositions, or it has this needlessly deep, complex story where, there's a saga and there's like a whole lineage you have to follow. A film's value should be what you make of it, not its film critic site score or whether it's trendy to like it, what you take away from it. And this film's value is a lot to me. I'm not a lost Russian princess, obviously, but I felt lost in the world before, only tied to previous shit that's happened to me and having what I thought was nothing left. But as simple as one movie can be, that I only rediscovered because I was binging Kelsey Grammer's filmography after a Frasier marathon, it did wonders for me, and I want to share that with you guys, and I encourage you guys to, do what you want. Talk about your own movies. Movies that make you as happy as this movie makes me. And I know it's common for people to watch these video essays based around animated movies and believe that the commentator is putting way too much thought into something. That, to them, is, a movie made to make profit from parents of children to feed a higher corporation. But look, after having watched Bluth's catalog of films on and off throughout these past years, I never got the feeling I was being pandered to. Even the more kiddie-ish films from Bluth's lower points in his career, I still saw a creator. I saw a man who had a story and wanted to tell it whether it was successful or not. I still saw value in the work he would put in. You can tell that he loves animation. Otherwise, he'd become another Jeffrey Katzenberg and just sit his ass on top of $1 million company and just watch animators in turmoil. But Bluth was never that to me. I saw a dude who was inspired by what he was seeing, beautiful hand-drawn cartoons created at the hands of thousands of artists, and he wanted to and did become one of those artists. You can watch any modern day animated film where you can tell not much thought or care was put into telling a cohesive story, or even giving their hard-working artists enough time to truly flesh out their creations on a Hollywood deadline. But there are still plenty of people out there, even if they're not backed by this massive powerhouse corporation, that are still doing that. Like Bluth, creators who pave their own path to tell their stories. Support indie animation, don't be afraid to be cringe, do what makes you happy while not harming yourself or others. I think that's a valuable enough lesson to leave you guys off with for this video. Thank you for staying with me during this silly or as over emotional as it may have been. Happy holidays, and I want you, yes, the viewer, to remember this. It doesn't matter what happened to you or what people told you that you should or have to be. You're more than that. You're more than what anyone tells you. There's room for everyone in this world who wants to make a difference. And without you, it would feel a bit more empty. So, I believe in you. And you're gonna be okay. Okay? So, happy holidays!